So this video I thought was pretty awesome because it actually included an option for um, an assessment book, which I had never even considered for a student. But in high school and middle school settings, this would look like the version of a like maybe a portfolio, writing portfolio or reading portfolio. So I thought this was pretty cool because every student there was differentiation in how they were assessed. Some had the paper tests, others had the physical things that they were being tested on, and then it looked like it was tailored to each student's abilities or where they were identified as their growth areas. So um, it is apparent within the video, and then if you think about the process of differentiating, that the student understood what they needed to do, the teacher clearly indicated that, and then they assessed them in a way that allowed them to demonstrate what they knew, which leads to the next guideline: validity through variety. We already know that differentiation is important. However, sometimes we forget about the variety of assessment protocols that we should put into place while students are learning what they need to know. So these the variety could include traditional exams, graded projects, written or narrative works, group assignments, portfolios, and naturalistic assessment techniques. This article does indicate, some of the challenges with integrating some of these types of tools, especially when we do grading within a group dynamic. I can only imagine the challenge with kindergarten setting, because it seems like the grade is assigned to everyone, although everyone may not have contributed. So the assessment book for each student would be a great thing to add into group projects. After the students complete their project, then they have the individual portion that demonstrates their ability, whether it's with a written or a narrative kind of assessment, or mathematical computations that they have to do in front of you, or a science experiment that they have to finish out or maybe read a report of. It's up to you, but I think having a accountability on the individual level to complement the group work is very important, because that's one of the things that a lot of students may feel challenged with. The next thing is tackling the tough evaluation issues. So that gets into some of the things that I pointed out uh, in the previous slide, where there are issues concerning standards and confidentiality surface in especially in peer assessments, also group assessments. However, it depends on how you set these things up. So they give you some strategies and how to kind of ensure that you decrease those impacts within your grading practices, to make sure that all students are assessed and that there's a level of confidentiality sustained. So, and what I mean by confidentiality, sharing students' grades and their results and their process in learning something can be personal information. So some of the things I do is I do individual grading always with group assessments, because if I share with this student and that student that they receive the same grade but it may be different feedback, they may feel uncomfortable with those assessments being seen by everyone. So having a personalized individual grading process within any group dynamics that you have, especially with cooperative learning activities, that's super important. So it says here, effective grading practices relies on equitable and appropriate evaluation. Evaluation becomes especially difficult in the face of cooperative learning activities and students with special needs. So alternative assessment often takes the form of collaborative activities and projects, but like I said, you can complement a cooperative learning or collaborative learning opportunity with a independent or individual assessment that allows the student to demonstrate their learning and allows you to give credit in multiple areas of their process without jeopardizing the student's personal information or their personal growth. I wanted to bring up a document that kind of exemplifies some of the things that you've already seen. So this is the standards for pre-K, and it is Nevada standards. And the document's pretty lengthy. It goes from 1 to 102, but it shows you how to do a lot of the things that, sorry about that. Ooh, you're just going crazy. A lot of things that I've mentioned or that we've seen thus far. So if we go to page 22, there is an example, page 11, but I like these examples because they break down based on content area how you can ensure that you're supporting these practices. So if you don't have a process, maybe you can adapt the assessment binder, which serves as like a portfolio for each student, and then integrate these practices into their independent approaches. So for example, you could have them sing a song that encourages counting, and then you have the song and you end it and you identify the points that they've successfully completed, and then you mark the ones that they didn't, and then come back to that song later on after the cooperative group activity or whatever the case may be. You can have them play counting games, and then have them play a counting game personally with you, so then you can assess what they know. This is in the resources pile, so don't feel like you can't go back to it, but just for an example. Then we'll see some of that in the last two videos in the next video break, which will be the last one. So here are some things to consider. How can you incorporate what you have seen into your own teaching practices? Just like I gave you the example here with the actual Nevada standards for pre-K, and some of the things that they suggest for you to do to make sure that students can demonstrate the learning standards. And then in what areas your methods of using and tracking formative assessment hinder or advance learning within your classroom. Consider, if you have methods that are not clear to the students, or if you don't have a firm grasp of what you're tracking or how you're tracking it, this may impede learning, because you're supposed to take this information and then restructure your actual learning environment. And I know for pre-K, just like with preschool, it's a crazy environment. The students are very active, and there's a lot of different things going on, and they do depend on you to work alongside them, but there is a way for you to assess their independent growth and development over a period of time. You just have to be strategic about it. So think about what you're currently doing, and then what additional resources do you need to enhance your current practices. So the last few things in this lecture series, the last break has two videos. Two different examples. This one focuses on formative assessment in the classroom, and the other one focuses on self-assessment in the elementary school. And I thought this one was pretty neat because it shows you how to integrate self-assessment into such a crazy and busy environment where students are so codependent on group and guided activities. And then lastly, we end with the additional resources, which I'll probably add some more and add a link to that in the Padlet dashboard or the Padlet page that we have. So now your task here is to look at the last two videos and then respond in the video discussion, and then complete the quiz, and hopefully have some guidance in completing the next individual practice, which is the final project check-in 1. For those of you who teach secondary education, the next module will focus in on secondary education, but you could pull some ideas like I did from the elementary teachers' examples. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I hope you enjoy the next set of videos and the examples that they provide.